Well, thank you everybody for coming today. I've actually had to change rooms from where I was before because I'm in the UK at the moment and it was so loud that I've had to move. But thank you all so much for giving up your Thursday afternoon and joining us for what I hope is going to be a very useful session for you. As you can see, it's called 10 Top Tricks and Tips for a Safe, Fun and Organised Pre-Primary Class. You can see there, that's my Twitter name. So if you have any questions and you want to, if you're on Twitter, feel free to send me messages and I will answer. And if you're not, maybe take it down anyway and get a friend or someone if you have any questions. I would something I'd like to say is that I'm afraid I can't give you the slides at the end of the session because they've got some of my daughter's artwork on them, and so we can't do that. But so if you'd like to take some notes, maybe grab a pencil, and it won't be difficult to take notes, and that will keep you awake anyway. So quick pencil if you like, and also you can ask Neil afterwards if you like, and he will pass on any messages or questions, and I can possibly write up a short thing for you if there's anything particular that you would like me to follow up on. So today, the idea is I'm going to talk about my top 10, which are a bit like the 40 principales. Is that how you say it? So the idea is we're going to go down from 10 to 1 and like a top 10, as if it was the top 10. And each, of course, these are my top 10, which I'm sure are different to yours. And obviously, you would adapt it to your class, to your group, because each is different, as we know, in your classroom situation. So my first question to you, please, in the chat box is, I've written you a little poem here. So I'm going to read it out to you. If you chose your best tips from 10 to 1, for pre-primary safety, organisation and fun, for success again and again, what would you include in your top 10? So I'd be really interested in see what your ideas would be. What would you put in your top 10 tips for pre-primary? Songs and games. Thank you, Pilar. Oh, yep. Songs, double songs. Might have to tap quickly. Stories. TPR. Routines, Pilar. Routines. Puppets. Stories. Phonics. Storybooks, routines. Okay, fun songs, games and stories. These are very popular. You're going to have to type quickly, I think, because we're going to move on to my number 10, I think. My number 10 is coming up now. Nursery rhymes. Number 10 is, did any of you say this? If you do, you get 1 point. Respect routines. Who said that? So my next question is, why are routines so... You said routines. Great. Oh, Pilar, right. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. That was that Basque name, I imagine. Beautiful name. Oh, good. Right. Okay. So why are routines so important in the pre-primary classroom? Would you like to type in the chat box again, please? Why are they so important, do you think? Confidence. I agree. A repetition. Security. Confidence. Know what to do. I agree. Time, the organisation of time, exactly. Safety. And fun routines. That's interesting. They can be fun, can't they? Yep. Yep. Okay. I'm going to move on to my notes with this. So I think what I've done here is I've put, in each of these slides, I've put one comment and then some tips. So I think some of you said this. I think the first thing is to recognise the importance of the familiarity for pre-primary. I mean, if we think of 3-year-olds, for example, a 3-year-old's routine is wake up, eat, possibly go to nursery school, get back from nursery school, eat again, maybe sleep, eat, maybe play. I mean, obviously play a bit, but it's so, their routines are everything for them. So if we suddenly put them into the classroom, it's such a change for them at these young ages. So the routines are so important for them. Somebody mentioned safety. I can see Paul's got it there, and lots of people have mentioned safety. Also, if we're taking them out of the home environment, suddenly putting them in a classroom, the routines are essential to provide that safety. That environment is very strange for them. So providing that routine obviously helps that. Somebody else mentioned the structure. Somebody said that the idea of time. Who was that? It gives them the space of time. They know where they're going to be, what to do when. So they know, for example, okay, now we're going to start the class. Now we're going to sing a song. Now we're going to do some circle work. So it helps them know, give them a sensation of time. They know the prediction that the class is going to end. They're not going to be in the class forever. That some things are things they like more, there are things like less, there's going to be variety, and they see what's happening. All of this is going to help them be more relaxed, feel secure, and therefore that security it helps them be calmer. So starters mean to go on. I always spend a long time practicing the routines. I will actually stop the class and go back and repeat the routine until we get it right, especially at the beginning of the year, because I think routines are so important to establish. So I tend to have my class as a tip. I tend to think of them as get into the class, getting on with the class, and leaving the class. Those are the 3 essentials. Another thing I'd say is use the material in the book, maximise that as well, like the songs and posters. So let's move on. So that's my thought of routines. And here, just an example, if you're using Daisy Robin Me, you'll see this poster with for example, the weather routines, get the helper, the birthday routines to establish them. So now we're going to move on to number 9, which is, did anyone predict this one? I think not. Number 9 is this one. Tech no fears. So I love using tech in pre-primary, in all kinds of different classes. So if you look at the title here, is it tech no fears, or is it techno fears? So my question to you in this next question is, what is it for you? Is it techno fears? Are you afraid of using tech? Or is it tech no fears? You don't mind using tech. So I'd like to have a little bit of any comments on your use of tech with pre-primary. Do you use it? Tech no fears. Great. Right? No, nobody's bothered about using tech in the class. I think this is great. Yep. Adapt. Yep, adapt. Exactly. That's always a problem, isn't it, if you don't have the resources? Yep. Sometimes you can just use tech. It's very easy just to put a video on, isn't it? Let's be honest. Sometimes. Yeah, in which case, Paul, the computer room, is that interesting, a computer room setup. It's a bit of quite an old-fashioned setup nowadays, isn't it? With pre-primary, presumably they can't use a mouse, so presumably you have to plan your classes around that. Anyway, we always adapt, don't we? They learn from each other. One PC available, but do you have a projector, for example? Yep. Oh, that's nice. I mean, you've got a projector. That's great. There's a lots of. If you've got a projector, that's fantastic. Yeah. So this is possibly a different talk altogether, because I'm going to need to move on. And so here, for example, the picture you can see here is from an app called Class Dojo. I don't know if anyone knows it. I would say with tech, if you're going to try out different things, always make sure you can use it for lots of different classes, or experiment with one to begin with to see if it really suits you. Here's some comments on tech. Most important thing I would say is safety first. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you a slide with some links, one of which is where I give an article why I should never put any children's photos of children's faces online, which I wrote. So at the end, I'll give you the opportunity to take a photo of that. Keep parent-carer accounts separate from personal. Never have the parents on anything of your personal accounts. And use safe sites ads. For example, particularly using a YouTube video, sometimes you can get those awful adverts that come up in the middle. You might need to look at ways of avoiding that, or using a downloader or something. This picture is from Class Dojo, which has a very nice window to the class. It gives parent codes, which generates parent codes, so they don't have to, and it provides a safe space where parents can comment on it. It translates to Spanish. I don't know if it translates to Catalan, Gallego, or Basque, or anything else, but you could ask them. There's a link at the end to Class Dojo. Other things I use a lot are stop motion and book creator apps, making the use of the puppet. But this is another whole session in itself. Game maker apps and a bit of augmented reality. I use something called Quiver, which I'm actually going to type in here in case you want to look at it. Quiver, which is an augmented reality app. So I'm going to move on now to number 8. So we've gone from 10. We're going to move now on to number 8, which is promote pre-literacy. So why do you think I've got scissors there about pre-literacy? Can you type in the text box as an answer to that, please? And also any things you do for pre-literacy. That would be great to hear that in the text box. Sandboxes, how lovely. Oh, I have never used those, but that sounds absolutely fantastic. I've seen a lot of use of them with in Pinterest sites and things like that, but I've never actually used them as a Starfolk. I don't know that either. Perhaps we could make a list of some of these sites. Possibly, Neil, I don't know, we can later. Oh, Starfall, sounds very interesting. Oh, yep, facts, right, oh, lovely, thanks. Okay, so here in this photo, what we're looking at here is developing fine motor skills, which you're also talking about here. So moving on to literacy, obviously, which helps in writing. So different literacies we'd be talking about, like oral literacy. Then we've got visual literacy, which is, for example, seeing things in text in the stories, using visual clues to help understand meaning in reading, and the shapes of things. So I think, again, that's for a different talk altogether, really. But just as a brief introduction, you might want to look at the different literacies. And some tips here would be, people often say, what about these pencil activities and colouring in the books? And a lot of these, they're not just, apart from all the other things that we write them for, they're also pre-literacy skills, or critical thinking, etc. Craft is a great way of including all kinds of different pre-literacy skills, like the tearing movements, all of which, the sticking movements, all of which strengthen different muscles to help the children write. Then we've got the stories, obviously oral literacy, the movements in the songs. For example, all these incy wincy spider kind of movements. Looking at myself with the camera, it's quite difficult. I'm moving in the wrong way, you know, the incy wincy spider kind of movements. And all the games, TPR activities, all of which help towards these pre-literacy skills. So now that's number 8. Number 7 is puppets are pals. Here we have Mouse. As you can see, he's got a bow tie. He was actually going to the gala dinner, which was in London last week, which is why I'm here. And puppets. Any comments on puppets you'd like to add in the chat box? What special uses for puppets? I think we're doing quite well for time. They love Mouse. I know, so do I. They love puppets. Yes, Ines, this is very interesting. I'm going to actually give you a word for that. We're going to see it on the next slide. It's called animism. Oh, that's nice. Lovely. You've got a teacher assistant comment. I think everybody would love a teacher assistant. An example, yeah. Hi, Teresa. Lovely to see you. Or Mary Teresa. Okay. Mouse does not speak Spanish. Very good for Mouse. Can you remind me of that later, Nakane, if that's the right pronunciation? Oh, teacher assistant being pupil. Oh, that's cool. Oh, lovely. Okay. Right. I don't think we can ever underestimate the power of the puppet or the course. The children really identify with the course, the person, the personaje in the course. The word I was going to tell you is animism, and that is, I'd copy that word down, I think it's quite nice, it's a belief that young children have that objects are real. You know, if you like, for example, take a pencil and the pencil starts speaking and the children could believe that the pencil is real. I used to do it with my daughter a lot with stories in books. I would make the characters speak in the book, and she would speak back. So it's this wonderful belief that, which is possibly one of my joys, total joys of teaching pre-primary, is that the children actually believe that the puppet is real. So some tips for using the puppet, props, as you can see with Mouse, and you've got all the Mouse props. If you haven't seen them, check out the resources, because there's all the props there that you can just cut out pre-story. The Mouse can express the values, all the values that the puppet can be demonstrating those. That's quite a good way to like the Be Quiet one, which is the story with the animals. I think it's 3 or 4 in starter. When Mouse is being naughty, you can be quiet. The Mouse can join in the stories, or the puppet, or it doesn't have to be Mouse. Introduce things. Mouse can find the flashcards, always adds more excitement. Show the emotions, and also you can hide Mouse in various places in the class and find him. That's always fun. And if you have more than one Mouse, that's always brilliant, because you can have one Mouse hiding somewhere and appearing somewhere else. You've got that. If you can borrow another teacher's mouse, and then you can have different family mouses, dress them up, that's always great fun. So those are just some suggestions for puppets. I'm sure you've got lots of lovely ideas. And we're going to move on to number 6, which is Can you guess what number 6 is? I haven't written what number 6 is. Can you guess what number 6 is? Can you put it in the chat box? I think several of you have mentioned number 6. And it is... Oh, she must... I've got a dress. Lovely. Oh, I'd love to see that, Reyes. I'm sure we'd love to see that. Stories, TPR activities, movement. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Boing, boing, boing. It is stories. What I tried to do in that story is introduce the TPR boing, 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 and the noise, because I love having noise in stories. And a bit of everything, really. And all to do with stimulate with stories, to try and make the stories as exciting as possible. I love stories. I'm always inventing stories. And these are, I haven't put comment and tip here. I've tried to divide the stories into the way I think of stories is pre, during and post activities. So the first one, pre, as many things as possible for prediction, the puppet, covers of the books, any realia, anything before the story for prediction. During, use your voice, pause, etc. And then have a child come up and turn the page, volunteer come up, that's always exciting. And obviously use the artwork to explain the meaning. In actual fact, I don't know if you know, but if you use the phonics, I think on every page or every level, you'd have to check that out. There's different words for each of the phonic sounds. You'd have to look that up in the teacher's book. That'll be explained somewhere. And then follow up with all the extra activities you've got. Also, for example, acting out. I'm sure you've got lots of follow-up ideas. Any other suggestions for stories you'd like to put in the chat box before I move on? Like, for example, Reyes has got a beautiful idea for mouse here. Any others you'd like to add? Before I move on to number 5. Online stories. Quite often, what we tried to do is I've tried to include as much repetition in the stories so that the language will help I tried to do that deliberately in the starter stories. I've tried to make the rhythm as repetitive as possible to help repetition. As much as possible. So I think I'm going to move on to number 5. Oh, no, I'm going to pause here because we're halfway through. So we're going to go to the top 5 in a minute. So I'm going to recap. Can you remember? Oh, lovely, lovely, Jessica, different ways. So can you remember what number 10 was? What was number 10? This is a quick test. Number 10. Oh, good. Good. And what kind of routines? Do you remember? Respect routines. Go, Paul. And number 9. Oh, good. Oh, everyone's watching. Do you remember the title? Tech. Oh, good. And everyone's really very good. And number 8. Oh, 8. 7. Was it about puppets? Puppets are pals. That's right. And 6, it's here in front of us. Okay, so we're moving on. Is there anything for the top 5? Anything you think I haven't mentioned that I have? That was the stories. Anything you think I haven't mentioned that I should have done? Songs. I wonder if I'm going to mention songs. Stories. I've got stories. 6 stories. Music. Okay. Funny, acting. I kind of included acting, I thought, really with the stories. I think after the stories, drama. I studied drama at university, so I don't think I've actually got a section on it. It was quite interesting. Involve them. Okay, right. I'm going to move on to number 5, and you might be surprised at this. Okay, here's number 5. What is this? Do you know what this is? The significant silent period. Any idea who? Anybody in particular? Yep, coming. Yep. Yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, give them thinking time, reflection. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this is so important. Sometimes we try to. My daughter's teaching pre-primary at the moment, and she's very quite nervous, and it's quite you sometimes you need to. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about this. Okay, you might want to look at Stephen Krahsen. There's Stephen Krahsen did a lot about second language acquisition theories, which is one great thing about Stephen Krahsen is that you can, a lot of his work is available for free download. He's very generous with his writing, and he, at the end of the thing there's a link as well, and what he developed this idea of the significant silent period. Not everybody agrees with it, but it certainly rings true to me. People have said this, you've all said this. It's about that children, not everybody, some children need a period when they don't actually produce the speech. They just hear it going in, and they need this time to internalise, reflect on it. And I'm sure we've had children in our class that don't say anything, and then suddenly, I would say about February, 3-year-olds, for example, and then suddenly about February, they suddenly start producing the language, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And that, for me, it helps me agree with this, my experience of agree with Krahsen's writings and theories. And I think we need to allow the children time to reflect. Some of them just like to go in there and jump in there and do it, but others, not everybody is the same. And we need the activities like these pencil activities, like colouring, like crafts and projects, can help them internalise the language. So people say colouring is a waste of time. It isn't. I mean, it helps everybody internalise the language. It's actually, yeah. Krahsen always does also talk about input plus one. Exactly. Above their language level, though at pre-primary, I think we're always talking above their language level. And also these TPR activities help that the children can participate without necessarily producing the language, but they're still internalising it. What I really want to say here, which is a big message of mine, is be very aware of the danger of assessment at this age. I would not include any assessment activities in the books, in pre-primary books, personally. Maybe because I think it's inappropriate. I don't think you can give children 6 flashcards and say, what's this word? Because, for example, I had a child who would only liked the colour yellow. So if you showed him 7 colours, he only wanted to say yellow. Yeah, Immaculate, I think that's a much better idea. Observation is a much more sensitive tool. I think it'd be interesting to look at different forms of observation, but asking children to produce the language has all kinds of dangers. So I would please pass that on to any heads of departments or anything, please. I find it very worrying, people asking children to produce as a form of assessment at this level. That's a bit of a message of mine for today. So, number 4. Thanks for the comment about the observation. It'd be interesting to look at different forms of assessment. Number 4 is masterful management. So, top tricks for managing your class. Anybody? Comments in the box, please. Thank you, everybody, for all your fantastic comments, by the way. Makes it much more interesting, I think, for everybody. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Don't get too tense. Yep. Variety. Thank you, Maris. Corners. What do you mean by that? Different corners with different activities? Stations. Yep. Yep. Like a sort of reading station. Yep. I think routines is one of the best ways for management. Yep. Yep. Different corners so people can have their different spaces to do different activities. And I'm going to move on to some management comments. Okay, use positive reinforcement. That kind of like, yep, Paris. That kind of like, look at Felipe. Look, isn't he behaving well? And try and encourage others to join in. Right, I've put be consistent or not. I think be consistent at primary is good pre-primary. I often don't think they really remember from 10 minutes to the next. So I think you have to be a little bit more lax that, for example, if someone is always doesn't have great behaviour, that sometimes you need to praise them when their behaviour is a little bit better, whereas I think you have to judge the children because I judge the child and compared to previous and what's going to help them. Here's some tips here. Use the helpers. There's the badges. I put them in, those badges, if you go to conferences, I always grab some of those. I love those in class. I always get people to give me those plastic things so that they last longer. And use the values in the story to an advantage. For example, oh, look, Mouse, Robin and Daisy did this, or the cats did that, but, that helps them. Awareness of body, I think, is very important because I think if the children are sitting correctly, they're not like all over the place. I think to encourage that really helps them to be awareness of their body space because they don't know that at this age. Routines, yep, totally. Hands up quietly, and always pay attention to those who are acting in that way. Discuss behaviour in L1. Is that a good thing to do? Why? And have a little discuss it. Oh no, because they need you to help them work things out. of their behaviour in a class, because at home maybe the parents, well, the carers will be helping them at home, but they don't know about the classroom behaviour in a larger group. That's up to us. Reward stamps, the home link. I mean, I don't know how much contact you have with the home, but the stamps obviously help because the carers can see what the behaviour has been like. If you see this book here, can you see the different yellow, red, green thing? That's something my daughter is experimenting with at the moment, which is she has in a pocket. She's got a teacher belt that she's bought. So she keeps that in one of the front, it's like a belt, like a carpenter's belt, and she keeps that in one of the pockets where she lifts up, and this gives quick hints to behaviour like sit down, good sitting, good being quiet, good penciling. So she has a very quick visual thing to certain children that it works for her. I thought it was quite an interesting technique that I'd show you. So now we're moving on to the top 3. So what do you think my top 3 are? The bronze medal. I have a bronze medal coming up. Any ideas? I want to finish to give you 10 minutes of songs. I think you might be very disappointed with the songs. I kind of got songs in songs and drama. I think I've got them in the stories. I don't actually have them in top 3. I kind of have them in routines. I sort of have them all over the place. So it's not going to be songs, I'm afraid. Right. The bronze medal goes to L1. Yes. When do you use L1 in class? When do you use either Spanish, Catalan, or Gallego, or Basque? When do you use that when do you use it in class? Bronze medal for L1. One of the questions I'm always asked is, what do you feel about using L1 in class? And while you type, I'm going to move on, but I'm looking at the chat box. And I think it's absolute, complete nonsense not to use L1 at early years. Whoever said that doesn't teach little children, as far as I'm concerned. I personally think, yeah, I agree. I personally think this is a throwback. Yeah. This is a throwback to the communicative approach, which was with adults in the late 70s. And I think it was often to do with kind of like private language schools, like people. I think the worry was in multilingual groups, you couldn't use L1. However, they're not talking about talking about 3 to 5 year olds. You, as a teacher, are going to end up using L1. For example, if there's a danger, what are you going to say? Say it in English. If something's dangerous, if the children need reassurance, exactly, when they're misbehaving, sometimes if you're explaining values, it's exactly. So anyone who says don't use L1, it's ridiculous. You have to use L1. At times, ideally, we're going to use as much English as possible, but I also think children don't notice they don't notice if 1 minute you're speaking English, 1 minute you're speaking in Spanish, to be honest. They don't know really. And I also think code mixing, exactly, Cathy, another good point, which is not here. Code mixing towards multilingualism, and I think code mixing is fantastic. For example, something like voy a colorear el t-shirt con el green pencil. I mean, that's just fantastic. They're showing that those children are actually putting the English within a pattern of language, and I think that's brilliant. So I think the idea is interesting. It's not quite translanguaging. that's a topic for another day, but I did think it's not quite, because it's a great point, but I've called it code mixing towards multilingualism. Yeah, I looked it up and I did quite a bit of research, and I can't exactly, send me an email afterwards and I'll tell you the difference. But it's not quite, but great point, because I thought it was too. I had a big conversation with Robin Walker about this, and we literally spent 10 minutes talking about it. And it's Robin and I, with this code mixing towards multilingualism is what we've decided on the... So just so you know, Robin and I, we did have this very interesting conversation about the difference between code mixing and translanguaging. Yeah, but do send me an email, because I'd be interested to talk about it. So that's the bronze medal, and now the silver medal is play is everything. So my next question is, when do you use play in your classroom? You've mentioned drama, and I think songs is a kind of play as well. So I'm including drama here now. Some comments on play. Somebody mentioned corners as well, which is a kind of like, that's more of a free play, isn't it? I think we've got 4 minutes before I get any other question. Lovely. Fantastic, Jessica. I think really we don't want people to forget the importance of play. Children learn by play, role plays. Yeah, I'm going to continue while I'm looking. Yes, exactly, the kids. I think it'd be interesting to have a look at I've got some links at the end again, to look at the different types of play, which is something I'm looking at. So I've just chosen 3 here. There's some link at the end of different types of the importance of development of the child. I'll give you a chance to take a photo of that. 3 I've put here, adult-led, obviously non-competitive at these ages. For example, you can pop-outs, if they've got the pop-outs, use music for them, hold them up. Dramatic play mentioned. Oh, here we go, songs and stories and acting out. So I have got songs and stories included in play. Pop-outs and craft, all of which are different kinds of play. And also I'm including realia. And here's some things you can bring outside, to bring the outside into the class. So I think you can just read that, obvious, all of which to stimulate the senses. I mean, ideally, we would spend our whole time playing with the children and, you know, going out with them and exploring nature and doing that in English, but the realities are obviously different. So we need to try and bring play as much as we can, and gradually learn with experience how to use play in different types and introduce different types of play. Okay, so that was the yep, all different kinds of play. Have a check out the different ones, because I sometimes think it'd be interesting for me to try and include some different types of play that I don't necessarily always include, with the links at the end. So, and now the gold medal goes to routines. So there we go again. I've slightly cheated, because we had respect routines, and I've said it routines rule, because at the end of the day, I think routines are the backbone to your classroom. I think it's what holds the class together at pre-primary. So for me, I put it at number 10, started at number 10. I've come back to it at number 1 again, because I think it's so important. So I've slightly cheated there, but I always like slightly cheating. And so finish the way you started, timed, tidy up, something that you really learn with experience. That tidy up time, you always need to use time, take time for it. Find an orderly way to leave, say goodbye to the puppet, and just as you were doing class, I thought we're going to finish with that. And as we would do in a class, we started with routines, we're going to finish with routines. Here are the links. Yep, tidy up the music song. Here are the links. I don't know if you want to take a photo of that, or maybe we can put it somewhere. The links there, you've got time to take a photo of that if you would like to. The first link of, oh, that says the knee importance. It should be the importance. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, Neil. We can share that. Great. So if we can share that slide. Do you have any questions in the last 5 minutes? If you do, you have to type them really quickly. But I think you've answered so many questions yourself. No. Great.